Hi, my name's Namita. This is Stephen.
Hello.
And our third member of the podcast team today is Nina.
Hi.
Welcome to the PNC podcast. Today we have a special guest, SA's Minister of Education. Please welcome the Honourable Mr. Blair Boyer.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to get an introduction like that. It's very generous, and thanks for having me. It's exciting to be on your podcast.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come talk to us today.
Pleasure. As I said, best part of being the Minister for Education is getting to come to schools, meet students and see the amazing stuff that you guys are doing like this. Best part of the job.
Must be very fun.
It is fun. Well, you guys do amazing stuff at schools. It's incredible. Like this, and I wasn't at primary school that long ago. You might think it was a long time ago, but for me it was felt like yesterday. We didn't do things like this. This is unbelievable. You've got your own radio show. You've got green screens and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, this is all thanks to Sammy over there. He's also helped us build self-confidence and self-esteem.
That's excellent, because you do need to have a bit of that to be able to do your own radio show, don't you? It's not it's not easy, but what a fantastic skill and skills that you guys have got that you're learning here.
Yeah, and it's also great having all this equipment and be able to actually have a chance and opportunity to be part of this.
Exactly, and your equipment's like the real deal. Like this is like an actual radio studio. I've only been in one a couple of times, but what you've got is just like it.
Yeah, he's really amazing. He helps us learn a lot of things in here. Like, we always be very positive in here. Like,
excellent. That's good. Well, so it's obviously a really safe and positive, enjoyable space for you to be in. But I can tell you that the skills you guys are sort of building by having your own podcast and having people on and asking them questions and then listening to their answers and then working out what your next question might be, they're really good skills for your whole life. Because that's hard to do. When you're having a radio show, you have to listen to what the person's saying and then think, right, what is my next question going to be? Fantastic that you guys are doing this, and it's a credit to your school and Sammy and Mr. Barwell. Got to give Mr. Barwell a shout out. That you do this. I think this is great. I hope we can have other schools doing it just like Prospect North does.
Definitely,
Yes, that'd be great.
So we are part of our own school ministries, and we love hearing great leadership journeys to help us in our own pathways.
Excellent.
Could you start by telling us, what does your job entail as Minister for Education?
So as a minister, you're responsible for the school system in South Australia, and that includes government schools like Prospect North, like public schools or Catholic schools or independent schools. So it's a big system. I think there are 270-something thousand school kids in South Australia across all those. It's a lot, that's right. But so there are always things going on. Of course, like I said before, always really exciting things that are going on in our schools, and my job as the minister is to make sure that, I guess, schools like yours have the resources they need, the teachers they need, the equipment they need, the buildings they need, make sure you're all safe and happy and learning. I think my job is also, though, to make sure I get out and talk to students like you to see what things we could do better and talk to your leaders and your staff about what other support you might need from the government. What do you need funding for maybe, or help with, or what could we do better to make our schools even, I guess, more excellent than they are now. And I love to be able to do things like this, because then I can tell the South Australian public, the mums and dads out there, about the great things that are happening in our schooling system, because there are so many fantastic stories.
So what do you enjoy most about it?
Going to schools like this is easily the best part. That is the greatest part. I think being responsible for education is a fantastic job. The best part of it, though, is to be able to go to schools, meet students, see the amazing things that you guys are doing. I love listening and getting your perspectives on the world, though, because younger people have got a really fresh kind of view of the world, an idea of the things we are doing well and the things we're not doing well, and what you would like to do when you're older. So I really enjoy that. I'd be happy to visit schools all day and talk to kids.
What primary school did you go to when you were younger?
So I grew up in country Victoria, about an hour over the border from Mount Gambier. And the school was called Narrawong Primary School. It was a very small country school. There were 38 kids, so very small. And then after that, I went into Portland, which is a bigger town, and the high school had about 800 kids, Portland Secondary College. But I loved the little primary school that I went to. I had very fond memories of being a student there.
Must have been kind of hard, because you're going in from 38 kids to 800.
It was a big change, I must say. I remember my first day of Year 7, because back then Year 7 was already in high school in Victoria. I remember being pretty overwhelmed by the number of students there. When you go go from a school where you know everyone's name and you probably know their parents and their brothers and sisters to a place where there's just, 5 times as many students in 1 year level as there was in our whole school. But it was still good. I had a great experience at school. I love the schools that I went to. But I do love coming and seeing how things have changed in that time. The kind of technology that you guys get now blows me away. Like the idea of being able to do a professional podcast from your school is incredible. And I still remember when we used to get the old Apple IIe computers, which were the very first box square ones, and they would just come for a few days delivered by a parent who had access to one at work, who'd bring it to school and the kids could have a bit of a play and then they'd take the computer away. But that was the extent of computers at school. That was nothing. There was nothing else. There was no iPads. There's no smart devices, no green screens or interactive screens or video cameras. And I love this stuff. So I'm jealous of you guys getting to have it.
So it's a big step up, right?
It's a big step up, but I love to see how you guys can use it. And the important thing is that I know technology like this is going to be a big part of your futures. Like you've all got to be really tech savvy, don't you? Because that's the way the world works now. And having things like this that Sammy's doing helps make sure that you kids have those skills. You know how to do, I'm sure, some of the kind of basic production and recording and setup. Fantastic skills to have when you're adults.
What inspires you about SA schools?
The range of things that happens. Like every school does at least one thing, and I mean this in a good way, that's a bit different to what other schools do. And this is a fantastic example. Everyone does their own little unique thing, which I think is great. So we want you all to have, obviously, our kids to have a great standard of education. We want you to learn and get good results that open up opportunities for you later. But I think it's really nice that schools can do things that kind of cater for the individual students they have at their school, whether it's a podcast or whatever it might be. So that goes back to me saying about why I love visiting schools so much, because I get to see these things I never knew our schools were doing. Every time I go to one, I'm like, that's amazing. I didn't know that we did that in our school system. But it's so big, unless you go and say hello, you don't find out. Like if I didn't know Mr. Barwell and if he hadn't invited me, I would never have known that Prospect North has a podcast. And now I get to tell other people about it.
What makes SE schools different from schools all around the world?
I think because of the kind of state that we are. We're really, it's a big space with not many people, right? So Adelaide's got 1.6 or something, I think, million people, and then all the rest of the state only has a couple 100,000 people. And the second biggest city is Mount Gambier with 25,000. So we've got lots of small populations out there, which means we've got a fair few small schools as well. And that gives us challenges for the system because it can be a bit harder to offer the same standard of things everywhere. But it also means we've got some really incredible things happening at all those sites in regional areas. That's what I like about the South Australian system. To me, it's kind of a uniquely Australian schooling system because of what our state is like. We've got far-flung sort of outback areas and areas by the coast and metropolitan areas and little farming communities. There's a heap of history and great opportunities for people to use the amazing sort of landscape around them to be part of their school. Because I grew up, like I said, in a school with 38 people in a farming community, and I thought that was beautiful. And South Australia's got so many schools just like that. People from overseas who grew up in New York City or London would look at those schools and go, wow, that is amazing. So I love that about South Australia.
At our school, I'm the Minister for Building School Communities. Do you think it's important for students to have agencies in their learning at schools? That's
a good question from a primary school student. Wow, that is impressive. Absolutely. And I reckon that is something that has changed since I was at primary school from when you were at from now, okay? That about having agency over your own learning. That wasn't really a thing in the 1980s when I went to school, or the 1960s when Mr. Barwell went to school. That's a new kind of thing, where this whole give kids agency and kind of control and be able to make decisions around their own learning. Back then, people would have been like, no way, you guys just do what we tell you, Here's the blackboard, we're going to write some stuff on it, and, that's really changed, which is good because I see how people your age respond to that. You love having a bit of control, a bit of agency, as we call it, a bit of buy-in, so you engage more because you get to make decisions and get to decide and shape the kind of culture of your school. So I think it's really, really important. And I think it also, long term, means we give you guys skills that previous generations didn't have. because you've had that agency from a really young age. We didn't. So you've got initiative, and that's why you do things like this.
We've actually got many different agencies or ministries. In our school, we've got STEM, Wellbeing, Building School Communities, Indigenous Voice, and STEM. If you could join one of those, which one do you think would be the best one for you?
It's a tough question. STEM's a big thing now, and it wasn't when I was at school. Like, we all talk about STEM now. Like, we did the subjects. So you did science, not so much technology, because like I told you, we just had an old computer that came once every couple of months, and we did maths and stuff. But that's really changed now. So if I had my time again, I guess I'd like to be more involved in that, to see the kind of skills that you guys learn there that maybe people like me weren't taught when we were at school. Because as a politician and as a minister, I'm always talking about the STEM labs that we opened and how we need to give young people the skills of the future, which is STEM skills, because that's what employers are going to want. They want you to be able to do all that kind of stuff, because that's where our jobs are going. You know, even jobs that used to be like really sort of manual labour, like driving machinery, often now they're dealing with really high-tech computers. You know, so you've got to understand how to do that. So I think for me it would be the STEM agency.
Okay.
Also with the 5 ministries, which one do you think is the most important of them all?
Give me the other ones again, could you? I know there was.
There is well-being, that to make sure everyone is feeling like amazing in school, not making sure everyone's like not feeling like left out or anything like that. There's building school communities that brings the community together and make sure everybody's happy, feels like they belong in the school. There's STEM, which organizes like different sessions where people can learn about different technologies and stuff like that. There's Indigenous Voice, which helps the Indigenous kids to remember their culture and share it with the world. And
I think that might be 5.
Yeah, I think so.
Well done. Well, they're obviously all important, but for me, the wellbeing one, and what I've sort of said a lot since becoming the minister a few months ago is we obviously want all our students to get good results and do well academically, whether it's your NAPLAN test or whatever it is. But what I've been careful to say is if the well-being of our students, like you guys, is going down, we're not going to see the results go up, are we? If people aren't feeling good, you know, whether it's mental health or they're not feeling included or there's bullying or they're lonely or there's some problems at home, you can't expect that student to come and get amazing NAPLAN results that are better than last time they tested. So I think for me, well-being, we have to talk about both at the same time.
There is also one more I forgot, teaching and learning, which organizes like what curriculums we're going to be doing to make sure like we're doing enough science, enough health or like that.
Well, that's very important as well, I agree. But I'd still stick with well-being. For me, I want to make that the focus because, you know, you guys are grappling with a bit of that stuff, your age group, and the pandemic's been hard on everybody. So I want to make sure that you're all feeling happy and included and healthy, and you know. And then I reckon if we get that right, we will see that improvement in academic results as well. But we're not going to get it if people are, you know, deteriorating in terms of their own well-being.
We have a body bench at our school. Do you think that it should be at every single school?
That's a good question. I've heard a lot about buddy benches, and I've heard they're very successful. What do you guys think, though? You tell me. How important and used and successful has the buddy bench been in tackling those kind of things?
I think the buddy bench is very helpful for kids. Like if they don't have someone to play with, they would just sit in the buddy bench. Someone would see them like upset or lonely, then they would come over to them and say, "Do you want to play with us?" And that could make someone's full entire day.
That is so true. That could make someone's entire day.
Yeah, and then like help include and like actually make new friends as well. So you meet new people and you help others as well. Beautiful. So I think it's very nice.
And from your perspective, as students at a school where they have a buddy bench, do they get used?
Yes, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome to hear. Well, I'm a supporter of them then, I can tell you that. I think it's a great kind of idea, as like you said, a way of making new friends as well as, you know, I guess having support if you're not feeling too good, and that kind of thing can absolutely make your whole day and turn your life around as well. So I'm a big supporter of buddy benches, and it sounds like lots of schools are putting them in, which shows they must work, I think.
Do you Do you have a buddy bench at your school?
No, they weren't really a thing. I mean, we had benches and places to sit, but the buddy bench wasn't really a thing there. But I reckon at the school that I went to, I bet you there's one there now.
So when you were growing up, who were the most influential adults in your life?
My parents, definitely. So my mum and dad. So we lived on a farm, but my dad was also a teacher at the high school that I went to. He taught English and history, and mum worked with families who had kids with disability to organise respite, so a rest for them from that care. So my mum and dad, by far the most influential people in my life, and they still are. There were other people as well, family members. I think as a kid you kind of look up to, maybe for me I was obsessed with football and basketball and tennis and cricket, so you kind of look up to sports stars. But as you get older you realise that your real heroes and most influential and reliable people in your lives are often the people around you, whether it's parents, grandparents, your carers, your teachers at school, your friends. So they're the real influences. But for me, my parents.
Thank you, Minister Boyer, for visiting us today and having such a great conversation. We have learned a lot about you.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for your very, very wise and well-researched questions. I was very impressed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a wrap. PNC Podcast out. Bye.
Fantastic, guys. You guys are very good at that. Wow. You guys are really good at that. I'm so impressed.
Kind of nervous, actually.
Oh, really? You didn't show?